This tutorial follows Scaffold Elements 2 Tutorial 1, loading data into Scaffold Elements 2. The following video will walk users through the process of organizing samples once they have been loaded. Please consult Tutorial 1 for information on loading data. Once data has been loaded into Scaffold Elements, it needs to be organized. Samples are organized into attribute groups and tagged with individual attributes. Attributes describe your samples and reflect your experimental design. Samples can be tagged with multiple attributes depending on the complexity of the experiment. In the simplest type of experiment, a control group might be compared to a treatment group. In this example, the attribute group could be sample type, and the attributes inside could be control and treatment. Control samples would be tagged with the control attribute, and the treatment samples would be tagged with the treatment attribute. If there are other aspects of the samples that could be experimentally relevant, such as sex, age, disease state, etc., they can be organized into additional attribute groups. Once samples are organized, the experimental design must be configured. This involves setting the technical replicate level, biological replicate level, and comparison level. Setting this up properly is very important, as statistical analysis is carried out according to how the experiment is organized. We will start with a file composed of newly loaded data. Note the file names on the left-hand side. Click the Add Attribute button on the right-hand side to create a new attribute group. Note, an attribute group must be created first, then attributes can be created within it. Name the first attribute group Patient and the first attribute within it Person 2, then click OK. We now have to add a Person 3 attribute to the Patient group. Click the Add Attribute button again and select the proper attribute group from the drop-down. Then type the name of the attribute in this case Person 3. Now we need to repeat this process for all of the attribute groups we want to add to this experiment. This experiment has both positive and negative mode samples, so we'll create a polarity attribute group and have positive and negative as attributes. The samples included were collected from 2 patients and were divided into blood, plasma, white blood cell, and red blood cell fractions. Thus we will create a component attribute group with blood, plasma, WBC, and RBC attributes. Now we need to tag the samples with our newly created attributes. This can be done in 2 ways, either by dragging an attribute from the right onto one of the samples or by highlighting samples and right-clicking them. Note, you can add another attribute to a group from the right-click menu if needed. Continue to highlight and add attributes to the samples until all of the samples have been tagged with their attributes. This is what the table will look like once all of the attributes have been assigned. Note the Import Attributes and Export Attributes file buttons. These will allow you to import an attributes file from another Elements experiment or from your LIMS system. The Export Attributes file button allows you to export an attributes file. Next, we need to configure the experimental design. Click on the Edit Experimental Design button. Attribute groups need to be dragged from one side of the table to the other to be included in the experimental design. They also need to be ordered properly. Start by moving all of the groups from one side to the other. The hierarchy of attributes should match that of your experimental design. We want polarity to be on the bottom, so highlight this group and use the arrow to move it down. We also want component to be on top, so use the arrow to move that one up. Set each level properly. They are defined as follows. Comparison level. This is the level at which statistical comparisons are performed. Biological replicate level, or blocking level, it typically defines the level of individual subjects. Technical replicate level designates the technical replicates. Setting the polarity below the technical replicate level will treat these samples as fractions and combine them. Positive and negative samples are typically combined. Finally, note the summarization level dropdown. This sets the level that will be displayed in the samples view and to what level the quantitative value should be rolled up to. Set this to MS Sample now, and click OK. Then click on the Samples View button. See that the samples have been put into their proper categories. Toggling the summarization dropdown will roll up and display the values at the selected level. Toggle this to component or patient and see how the display changes. Now that the samples are organized properly, statistical analysis can be carried out. Note the system is flexible and allows users to change the configuration as needed.